I just want to, I'm curious. This is a study. How many of you have ever dated before? You've dated. Okay. And I'm not talking like you got a Valentine that you read into, like you dated. Okay, let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Okay. How many of you dated and it was longer than 2 weeks? Okay. Okay. Full disclosure, I had a serious relationship in elementary school that was 4 days long. Um, it was real solid, real solid. We dated until my parents found out I was dating, and they were like, "You've got to break up," and that was it. That was it. I was like, "Sorry, it's not you, it's me," and that was it. Okay, so 2 weeks. A lot of you passed the 2 weeks. Anybody 3 months? Anybody make it 3 months? Okay. Has anyone dated over a year? You dated somebody for over a year? Some of y'all are real serious. Okay. How many of you married? All right, yeah, there we go. There we go. There's some hands that I saw that I was really curious about. We've got some questions. I want to know what country and but anyway. Hey, tonight it's Valentine's Day, y'all. It's Valentine's Day. And I just need you to know something. I'm not a Valentine's Day person. In fact, my wife doesn't like Valentine's Day, which I'm going to tell you right now is a win-win for us. Because I have zero pressure on Valentine's Day. It's beautiful. I'm here with you on Valentine's Day. But dating was not something that was comfortable or easy for me. In fact, I did not have Riz. And here's the deal. Y'all laugh at that, and that makes me insecure for two reasons. One, because I didn't have it while I was dating, and two, because I'm nervous that I'm using that word wrong. And so, thank you. All right, so, but here's the reality. Like, I did not have game. I was not smooth, but there were some things. There was some things that made dating, I think, and make dating kind of difficult for you guys, for me when I was in high school. And it's the idea that most of the relationships we see are broken ones. Like we don't have a whole lot of really good real life examples of relationships that worked out well. I don't want to ask. Don't raise your hand. Don't even look at me funny. But the reality is that the majority of you in this room, you grew up with your parents not together. That's the majority of people in this room. If you've and I saw your hands. I asked you like if you've ever dated. A bunch of y'all said yes. None of y'all are married, and I'm gonna assume that the majority of those relationships didn't work out. I'm just guess like that girl in seventh grade, you're not still a thing, right? That one cute boy in fourth grade who you're like, right? That's not still a thing. And so the reality is that the majority of our stories are really stories of like brokenness. Like the majority of the love stories are the stories that we've seen that like didn't work out well. And I think there's kind of a skepticism where for a lot of people, there's this like, I don't know if relationships like that, like I don't know if a marriage can work. And I don't know if like dating can work long term. And I don't know if, and we have just kind of this doubt, this skepticism around this. And I think there was something that is really absolutely helpful. And it's probably something that we don't think about. But I think that one of the reasons that most relationships fall apart is because there are red flags that somebody overlooked along the way. That there were some signs that this thing was not working, that this thing was not going to pan out, and you fell in love or in deep infatuation, and you ignored those. and you jumped right in. And then things didn't work. And here's the deal. I know there's probably a billion cultural red flags that you saw on TikTok and you were like, all right, that's a good red flag. I'm going to note that for my next one, right? And you made a little notch. But I want to actually share with you guys tonight something that I think is a little better. And it's dating red flags from God. They're dating red flags that I'm going to pull out of the Bible, that the Bible is going to say, hey, if this person has this is a red flag for you. This is not a good sign for you. If you keep going, I'm just saying there's going to be trouble. And I don't know if you've ever tried this, but I think the Bible has stupid, crazy, incredible wisdom that's really going to help us. And you've maybe never thought, how does my dating life and the Bible work together? Because there's not really like a chapter in the Bible that's like dating 101. There's not. That doesn't exist. But what I do want to do tonight is look at the Bible, look at some red flags that the Bible shows, and we're going to talk through them. And here's the deal. If you brought a Bible tonight, I want you to go to a spot in the Bible with me. It's Song of Songs, chapter 1, or some of your Bibles might say Song of Solomon. But go there with me. Go to Song of Songs. Go to Song of Solomon. Let me just see hands if you've even heard of that book before. Anybody heard of that book? Okay, handful of you. Okay, so here's the deal. Song of Songs isn't a dating book. It's actually a book that is a married couple. And what we're going to see is actually like some green flags. Like, we're going to look at a relationship that's killing it. We're going to look at a marriage that I think most of us would go, oh, my goodness, that's what I want that. Relationship goals, hashtag, this is what I want, okay? These are green flags, and what we're going to do is we're going to flip them, and we're going to say, okay, but if I take the opposite of that, this is a red flag. You follow? All right, so the Bible doesn't have a red flag chapter, but it's got a whole book about a marriage that's doing well. Now, let me forewarn you something about Song of Songs. Song of Songs is a PG-13 book. That's kind of a joke, but also serious. I don't know if you knew this, but in Jewish culture, right, which is where Song of Songs was written, Jewish culture, right? In Jewish culture, you were an adult at 13 years old, right? That's where PG-13 comes from. So you were an adult at 13. And Jewish children were not allowed to read Song of Songs until they were adults. So literally, Song of Songs is PG-13, and for good reason. In fact, it's kind of R. Okay, so here's the deal: Song of Songs is not like cutesy. There's some things in there that like. If I just read some pieces, you all would blush. And so you'd be like, I've never heard my pastor talk like that. So here's the deal. I mean, it's a wild book, but they're gonna do some things here. All right. So I want to get into the red flags. Red flag, the first one I want to talk about is they have this person, the one you are interested in, the one that's cute, the one that winked back, the one that DM'd you back, the one that was up at 3 a.m. that responded to your reel. That person, they've got a bad name. Okay, red flag number one. Now, here's the deal. I gave y'all a little note sheet and a pen, so if you want to take notes, which I think is really cool, you absolutely can. Red flag number one, they have a bad name. Now, here's what I don't mean. I don't mean that they have a stupid name like Tertullian, and you're like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, I cannot date somebody named that. Or right, like, it's not like you were like, man, her name is Ashley, but it's spelled A-Z-S-C with a silent K, L-E, right? Like, it's not like that. That's not what I mean by bad name. In the Bible, your name is your reputation. Somebody's name is their reputation. And here's why. Because somebody's name in a room means something, right? If you go to your friends and you go, hey, Josh was invited to the party, what face do they make, right? Is it the face of, oh, Josh is there? Or is it the face of, Josh, right? And when the teacher calls out the one name in class, they're like, Sarah. Is it Sarah or is it Sarah? Right? So the name, the Bible says that the name carries something. I'm going to read Proverbs 22, verse 1, and then I'm going to get into Song of Songs. You're going to see this. A sterling reputation is better than striking it rich. A gracious spirit is better than money in the bank. Here's the deal. A reputation, a good name is better than a tight fit, better than put together, better than a good reputation. Now follow me, because here's what happens in Song of Songs. Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 3. They start. I skipped verses 1 and 2 because they just start off the book making out. Okay, it's just too much. It's too much. Okay, but it says this: how pleasing is your fragrance. Your name is like the spreading fragrance of scented oils. No wonder all the young women love you. Now, here's the deal. She's talking to her husband, and she's like, you have such an amazing reputation that when your name is brought up, it's like cologne. It's like that thing. Oh, that's nice, right? It's perfume. It's like they bring up the name, and you're like, oh, that's refreshing. I love that person. Like, I love hanging out with that person. Here's the deal. If you are interested in somebody, and when their name gets mentioned, people's faces sour, people go, oh, man. Can I tell you, the Bible would say there's a red flag there. The Bible would say, hey, wait. There's a warning. There's a warning here. And the next one is kind of connected. Red flag, my second one is your fam disapproves. Now, here's the deal. Because I know what's happening in your own heart. You're like, Josh, you're an idiot. And I'm going to tell you why you think that. Because if you've dated, what happens when you start to date is you start to spend more time with another person, right? You're spending more time, you're exchanging all of your best memes with them, and it's just it's this thing back and forth. And what happens is sometimes your friends can get jealous and they get envious. And you go, they come in and they're like, hey, I'm seeing you change and you're different. And you go, well, you're just jealous. You're envious. That's not the friends that I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about when jealousy shows up, when envy shows up. I'm talking about when there are things that the people who are around you, who care about you, who are concerned for your well-being, the people who put up with you through voice-cracking puberty, the people who were there when you had that 2-week stint where you were wearing really weird clothes, those people who have heard you far out loud, who are saying to you, hey, I don't think this is good for you. Your fam disapproves. Song of Songs 1:4. You know what's interesting is Song of Songs 1 verse 4 is the girls' friends. And it says this: how happy we are for you, O King. We praise your love even more than wine. You know what's interesting is that their friends were excited about this. They were like, oh, I love your relationship. This is nice. This is good. He makes you better. You kind of sucked a little before. You're better now, right? What you're looking for is somebody who is making you better. And can I tell you something? If the people who care about you in your life, let me just say this because I know you don't like this. If your parents are like, hey, I don't think this person is good for you, your default, I know it. Your default is you don't know. You don't know what I know. You don't know me, right? That's, we have this reaction. But let me tell you something. There are people in your world who care about you, who want the best for you. And you want those people in your world celebrating, not moaning or crying or weeping, not having conversations in the background going, I can't believe they. That's not what you want. You want people who are celebrating with you. And And listen, if your tight circle around you hates the relationship and sees something that you don't, that's a red flag. Now, Proverbs 27:6 says, wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. And I love that proverb, because here's the deal. If I have a friend, if I have a friend who is willing to get so into my life and mess me up so that I'm better, that is more valuable than 100 people who don't really care about me, who sing my praises. You know what you need? You need the friend who's gonna show up at your fight and be like, no, you're not gonna fight. No, you're stupid. You're an idiot. Get over it. You're not gonna fight. I got you. Right? The friend who will take the blow from you because you're like, get out of my way. You're like, nope, not moving. Right? That's a better friend. And you've got people in your life who might speak into your dating relationship and go, hey, this is not good. So, watch the flag. Red flag number 3, they're perfect. Oh my goodness. They are absolutely perfect. And this cuts 2 ways. One, either you think they're absolutely perfect, or just as dangerous, maybe even more dangerous, they think they're perfect. Right? Because what happens is when you encounter somebody who is so prideful that there is nothing ever wrong with them, can I tell you something? You are in danger. Like, that's real serious. If you've got somebody in your world, in your life, who they think they are perfect, they'll never be teachable. They'll never grow. The version that you see of them right now is the best they will ever be, maybe worse. In fact, the Bible says that pride comes before destruction. Right? So like if there was like a step where like if pride was like a ladder, the next step is the absolute collapse of a person who's prideful. And if you start to date somebody who is never wrong, and they've never been wrong, and they tell everybody they're never wrong, and they've never lost a fight, can I tell you something? There's pride living unchecked in there. And the other thing, too, is sometimes we idolize people. And so we see nothing wrong in them. We see all of their weaknesses as just cute little things. And here's the deal. This, I'm going to read this from Song of Songs, and it's going to sound a little strange, and I'm going to have to unpack it. But Song of Songs 1, verse 6, she is saying this to her husband. She says, don't stare at me because I am dark. The sun has darkened my skin. My brothers were angry with me. They forced me to care for their vineyards, so I couldn't care for myself, my own vineyard. Now, here's what's happening. This is a lot to unpack. But in her culture, being tan is actually unattractive. And I know, which is kind of wild. But throw up this picture real quick. Throw up this picture of beauty standards. Because beauty standards change over every culture. These are like the ideal women in different cultures and moments in history. And what's wild is that, like, they're very, very, very different. Different builds, different makeup, different dressing, different, like, just things change, right? So, all right, so you don't need to, but here's the deal. In her culture, she knew that she had like there were things about herself that she didn't like. And you know what's interesting is she's honest and open about things that she sees in herself that she doesn't like. She's willing to acknowledge some weaknesses. Now, do you know what's beautiful is he comes along and he's like, girl, I like you just like you are, right? You're like, oh, all right. But what I think is important to see here is that pride doesn't rule and live. Because if it does, if somebody you're dating is perfect in every way, that's a red flag. All right. This is my favorite. Red flag. The relationship is sexual. Now. Marriage is supposed to be sexual. That's what sex is for. Dating should not be sexual. That's not what that's for. Now here's the deal. The Bible is very clear. Sex is a beautiful thing. It's a gift. Genesis 1, it just lays out God made man and woman. He's excited about them coming together. Genesis 2, he talks about that they're together and they're naked and they're not even grossed out or embarrassed or anything. It's just nice and beautiful and perfect. And so listen, God's in. He's okay. In fact, he created sex. He's not bothered. He's not even embarrassed by it. He doesn't blush. God has a book in the Bible called Song of Songs, and there are wild descriptions of sex in that book. And so I just want to say that because you need to understand that God's protection about sex being for marriage isn't because he's prudish, right? It's not because God's ew, gross, stop it, right? That's not what God's doing. God is going, man, I created sex to be in this perfect, and it works best in this environment, and it's like this. There's a reason that basketball games aren't played in the middle of a highway, because basketball is fun and highways are good, but that's not the right environment for basketball. Do you feel me? When my kids want to play tag in the middle of the street, I'm like, no, we can't do that. That's not the right environment, right? There's a right environment that is better, that is safer. And let me just say something, that if the relationship is sexual, this is a red flag. And do you know what's really, really wild is that Solomon writes the book Song of Songs. Solomon was a king. Solomon writes the book Song of Songs not about his own. This is not him and his wife. The book is him, and some scholars think it's a girl that turned him down. In fact, when you get to the end of the book, she says, Solomon, you keep your stuff. I don't want it. I found love. Okay? Now, here's what's interesting. Because, so Solomon's the reject. He's the outcast. But Solomon is probably a terrible person to take relationship advice from, because Solomon had 700 wives. Okay, and so I think just for kicks, this is, can you imagine family picture, just the wives, right? Okay, so Solomon is not the guy we want to take relationship advice from. Okay, but here's what's interesting. In Song of Songs 3, 6 through 7, it says this. So the married couple in the book, they see Solomon, and they describe how broken sex is in his life. And it's all masked in kind of this metaphor. So follow me a little bit, and I'll explain it. Who is this sweeping in from the wilderness like a cloud of smoke? Who is it, fragrant with myrrh and frankincense, every kind of spice? If you're not into essential oils or the birth of Jesus story, myrrh and frankincense are spices. Okay, so look, it is Solomon's carriage. Go to verse 9 or 10, whatever I have next. King Solomon's carriage is built of wood imported from Lebanon. Its posts are silver, its canopy gold, its cushions are purple. It is decorated with love by the young women of Jerusalem. Here is, if you unpack the Hebrew a little bit, and you kind of get a better picture of the metaphor. Basically, the married couple, they're looking at Solomon, and they're going, who's the new girl being, and if you, the very first image was smoke rising. and it says, who's the new sacrifice for Solomon's love? Like, who's the new girl on the altar? Like, who is it? Whose body are we smelling? And then it comes in and it says that the road that he rides on is paved, like the dirt is paved with the love of women. What happens in this is that they recognize that the sexuality of this has just led to broken people. Not whole people, not a good marriage, not a life. What's at the end of Solomon's rod is broken people. And Solomon himself will wind up broken. And here's the deal. This one is kind of tough because we live in such a sexualized culture. Like you go back to the cartoons that you watched as a kid, and there was always some slight little push of sexuality. And then it didn't take long until the video games you played and the YouTube videos that you were watching had a little more aggressive push. And then you got into high school, and there's people having conversations that are overly sexual. Now, I lived in a different day and age and culture than you do, but I avidly remember being a freshman in high school and having a girl go, "Hey, if you'll do it, I'll have sex with you." She was like, listen, I know. She's like, I just, whenever you want. Okay? Culture has moved a lot farther than when I was in high school. I have no idea that the sexual, whether it's harassment, whether it's like actual, like people advancing on you sexually. I don't know what it is, but you probably have stories of people that have tried to push that relationship to that place. And I'm just saying that the Bible is looking out for your best interest. You have a father who cares, who's like, man, there's something so much better. And there's a red flag if you are in a relationship with somebody who keeps trying to push sexual. That's a huge red flag. And this brings me into my next one. They're going to be tied together a little bit. That this person is full of lust. That if you're dating somebody who is constantly obsessed with lust. Now, Proverbs 6:25 says, "Do not lust in your heart after her beauty, or let her captivate you with her eyes." The Proverbs was also written by Solomon, which is interesting. And he says, hey, listen, don't let lust rule you. Don't let lust capture you. Let me explain something real quick. There's a difference between lust and beauty. There's a difference between finding someone attractive. You need to understand, finding someone attractive is not lust. That's not lust, okay? So it's not the fact that you looked across and you were like, oh, she's beautiful. Dang, I sinned. That's not it. That's not. And that's very, very important to understand, because you will like flay yourself going, oh my goodness. No. Attraction, that's not the sin. Lust is sexualizing it. Lust is the fixation on a body part. Lust is the next step scenario where you're thinking about what's beyond. Lust is further in. Do you understand? Lust is when you've taken that person and begin to objectify and do some of these things. And Jesus calls this, he actually says that this is the same sin as cheating on someone in marriage. Matthew 5:28, he says, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Now, I need to say something that's incredibly important. You need to hear me. You don't have to be stuck in lust. That's incredibly important for you to hear because you live in a culture that is so sexualized that some of you might have come to believe that you will struggle with lust in the way that you are for the rest of your life, and God could never redeem you or change you or do anything about it. And I want to just tell you that's wrong. That's not true. You can expect that God can do something better in you, and you can definitely expect in another person that they don't have to be committed to lust for the rest of their life. Do you know it's really interesting? And I'm saying this very specifically for an important purpose, because there was a study done a couple years ago, and it found that Christians that believed that lust would be something they lived with forever were 80% more likely than the rest of the population to marry somebody who is abusive. Now, I want you to know why that's significant. It's because somebody believed I can accept a red flag in their life and it's just normal. And it's not normal. The Bible says there's something better than this. No. If you are in a relationship and you find that this person is full of lust and unmoving, can I just say, this is a flag. This is not normal. This is not to be expected. This is not to be accepted. This is something that God can help somebody move from. You don't have, listen, and if that's you, you don't have to be stuck in that. I promise you. You do not have to be stuck in that. We just sang a song a few moments ago that just sang about God's freedom. Do you know that that's real? Those aren't just words that we're like, oh, God sets us free. No. He sets people free from things that they thought were so captivating and holding, and God can set you free. So there's probably, I have notes for like 7 more red flags, but I only have time to share one with you, and then we're going to do something cool. So I need you to understand something. I did not preach every red flag in the Bible. You get to go and hunt and find some more, okay? But let me read you this last one, because I think this one is really important. This one might be tricky too. Red flag, they're on the other team. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says this: don't team up with those who are unbelievers. That verse continues and it says, hey, what do we have in common? Now, that might surprise you because when I was in school, there was plenty of girls that I had crushes on that I was like, she's not saved, but maybe I'll lead her to Jesus, and it'll work out. Okay? But here's the danger, because I could in my own mind find common things between us. Be like, hey, we both like this, we both like this kind of music, we both like these kind of movies, we both like, she's the only one who likes the same kind of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with like nuts and dried fruit in them, like me. It's just, who else, right? So you can find, I know some of y'all were like, gross, but like, you can find things that you have in common. What the Bible is going to argue is that if you do not have faith in common, you have less in common with them than somebody who does believe. Like that, the things that you have in common actually don't stack up. They're not as important. They're not as valuable. They won't matter as long. They won't last as long. It says, hey, what we believe, and here's why. Because the Bible describes the word that's actually used in the Greek is yoked, which means to be tied with somebody. The person that you marry is tied to you. And you guys get to walk together through life. Do you know what's amazing? That if you guys are walking together toward the same place, you are way more powerful. Because you got two people pulling together, going the same place. There's power in that. There's life in that. There's encouragement. But if you've got two people in life that are pulling different directions, it's an exhausting walk. It's a tenuous walk. It's a difficult walk. And what happens again and again and again and again and again. And if I had, if I could probably list people who got into a relationship with somebody who wasn't following Jesus, and they said, it's okay, I won't change, and guess what? They did. What's very interesting is that Solomon himself fell into that same trap. Solomon ended up marrying a lot of women, a lot. More than the recommended dose of one. But here's what happened. I like that. Here's what happened in 1 Kings 11, verse 1. It says, "Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, and beside Pharaoh's daughter, he married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from among the Hittites. The Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, you must not marry them because they'll turn your hearts to other gods. Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyway. He had 700 wives of royal birth, 300 concubines." I didn't mention that. That's a lot to unpack, but it's basically like a sex slave. Yeah. And it says this, and in fact, they did turn his heart away from the Lord. Now, here's what's really interesting is that I gave you some flags, and there's a lot more in the Bible, but in Song of Songs, there's one red flag that comes up 3 times. In fact, every other flag I shared with you was kind of a green flag, and then we flipped it upside down. This one is a red flag. It's mentioned that way 3 times in Song of Songs. And it says this 3 different ways. Don't awaken love until it's time. It says, by the gazelles and wild deer. And if you read that, you're like, what on earth is it talking about? Here's what it's talking about. How many of you have ever hunted anything before? Okay, you've hunted anything. All right, so for those of you who, like me, have never hunted anything, here's what I understand of hunting. I understand of hunting that it is very unsuccessful if you go hunting like, wah! Right, if you do that, you will be quite unsuccessful. That's my understanding. That's what I read. I've fished a little bit, and I've fished with my kids a little bit, and I know that when my kids are out there like, hey, dad, look, splash, right? There's not fish happening. So what's it saying? It's saying, hey, you need to be cautious. You need to be careful. Like you're hunting does, gazelles, wild deer. Like you got to treat this like it's tender and careful. You got to be quiet on this. Do not wake up love until it's time. And it says this over and over, and it's the only red flag, is the red flag of if you fall in love too fast, you will miss the red flags. Do me a favor, pull out your glasses under your seat. You know what happens is we end up falling in love with somebody, and everything you see just takes on this rosy colored hue. You ever heard the term rose-colored glasses? Right? I mean, it's this idea that, hey, when you fall in love and you just start to see things differently. All right, glasses on. This is like that 3D movie. If the glasses aren't on, the effects won't work. Okay. Now, I've got something for you here. I've got a red flag and a beige flag. And the problem is that I don't think you can tell the difference when you're in love. I think if you've awoken love before it's time and you get too far in, you can't see what's the red flag And what's the beige flag? That if you ignore what God's word says and you jump right into a relationship, what will end up happening is you will ignore things that God has set out to protect you from, and you'll dive right in and miss it. Can I tell you something? Do you really want to date blindly, or do you want to date with the wisdom that God has for you? Come on. There's a better way. And I love, this is so cool to me. This is so cool to me. But here's the deal. If we ignore God's word, can I just tell you, I'm not cursing you. I'm not speaking ill over you. But I want to warn you. That if you ignore the red flags that God put there for you to keep an eye out for, you're going to miss. You're going to hurt yourself.